Hi guys, how we doing today? What we are going to do is we're going to find slope from any equation on page 21 in your packet. So what we've been doing so far with slope in chapter 2 is we've been looking at slope, how to find it from a graph. We've been doing rise over run. If I gave you 2 points, you were able to use the slope formula, which is the second y minus the first y divided by the second x minus the first x. And I've given you equations in slope-intercept form, and you were supposed to be able to find the slope because it's multiplied next to the y. So what I'm going to do today is what happens if I give you an equation and it's not in slope-intercept form? How are we able to find the slope when I give you any equation? Okay, so that is what we're going to be looking at on today's notes. We're still talking about slope and how to find it. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So if I'm finding slope from any equation, what I have to do first is make sure my equation is in slope-intercept form. Okay, so slope-intercept form must be y equals mx plus b. Okay, slope-intercept form. Okay, if it's not in slope-intercept form, you can't find the slope. Okay, so slope-intercept form, we know that the slope is our m. M is always multiplied to our x. Okay, and we do know also that b is our y-intercept. It's where our graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, so in example 1, we want to find the slope by having the equation in slope-intercept form and being able to find what number is multiplied to the x. So looking at example 1, these are some that we've already done, just kind of review. This is y equals mx plus b. In this case, remember that when there's no number in front of your variable, we put a 1 in front. So in this case, our slope is 1. Okay. In example B, remember that when we have one letter, I have taught you hoy and vux. Okay, you have hoy when you have y equals any number in your equation, so that's going to make a horizontal line. Remember, the 0 in hoy means you have a 0 slope. So your m in this equation is 0 because it makes a horizontal line. Okay, and then letter C, this one, remember, it can't be in slope-intercept form because you can't write y equals mx plus b if there's no y. So in this case, we have a x equals a number equation. So what we've learned already that makes a vertical line, and that slope is going to be undefined. So if you don't have a y, you can't write it in slope-intercept form, so your slope is undefined. Okay? So those are 3 examples that, kids kind of get confused or whatever, so I want to make sure I ran through those again. Now in example 2, we want to find the slope. When we solved our literal equations back in example 1 where we were solving the formulas and rearranging the equation, that's what we're going to do right now again. We want to look at this equation and ask ourselves, is this in slope-intercept form? Because it's not. If it's not, we have to find the slope first by solving this for y. Okay, so that's what these directions say. If it's not in slope-intercept form, this should say in. That's a typo. I'm reading it like, what does that say? Not in slope-intercept form is what that should say. If it's not in slope-intercept form, then you have to solve it for y. So you can't just look at the x and go, oh, slope is 5, because it's not 5. You have to solve for y first. Okay, so we're going to solve for y first. All right, here's how it works. Slope-intercept form, we're solving for y. So our first step is going to be to bring our line down, and what we are going to do is solve for y. That means we are going to move the x, subtract 5x. Okay, if I want to solve for y, I need to get the x term to the right-hand side of the equation. So I'm going to drop down my 3y, and then I am going to bring down. Now here, we cannot combine these. They're not like terms. So what we're going to do is we want it in mx plus b form. Y equals mx plus b. Since we want it in that form, the mx, which is the negative 5x, is going to go first, And then right now in the B spot is going to be that positive 15. You cannot combine those. They are not like terms. Okay? We're not at y equals yet because we have 3y equals. So our last step is going to be to divide by 3 from each term. So you have to divide by 3 from each term. So you're going to divide it there, and we get y equals negative 5 divided by 3 is negative 5/3 x. 15 divided by 3 is positive 5. So looking at this equation, what is our slope? Well, you can see it's the number multiplied to the x. It's actually negative 5/3. So very different from the 5 in front of the x up in the first equation when we started. So equations need to be written in slope-intercept form in order for you to be able to find the slope. Okay, let's look at another one, letter B. So the same process, what are we going to do? We're going to try to get this y term alone. So we're going to move out the x term by undoing it. So minus 3x to both sides. This is going to cancel out. We're going to drop down the negative 2y. Do not forget that negative. And then remember, we want this in mx plus b form. So we're going to do the negative 3x minus 12. So here's your mx plus b, but we're not quite done yet because we're going to go ahead and divide by negative 2 because we need our y alone. Okay? In order for us to be in slope-intercept form, that y has to be alone. So we have y equals negative 3 divided by negative 2. And negative divided by negative is a positive. It's 3 over 2x. And then negative 12 divided by negative 2 is positive 6. And you guys can use your Desmos calculator if you need to divide those. Because remember, your slope should be reduced right here. So if your slope is not reduced, then you need to make sure you reduce it by popping it in your Desmos calculator. Desmos calculator, your scientific calculator. So in this case, your slope is 3 over 2. Okay? We are finding the slope. And remember, we can identify the b as well, 6, but I'm really focused on finding the slope right now in these equations. Okay? So let's move on and look at our next example. So line's going to drop down. And again, similar process. I want to get this y term alone. So I have my y alone at the end. So I'm going to undo the x term. So add over the x term. Undo it. It's all about undoing when you move and rearrange equations. Our negative 4y is going to drop down, and that's going to equal 3x plus 20. There's your mx plus b form. It's not mx plus b yet because y isn't alone. So to get the y alone, we divide. So you guys should see a pattern here. You always move the x first and then divide by the number with y. Okay? You guys can hear my phone keep going off. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn that off real quick. At least turn it down anyways. Okay. So we have y equals negative 3/4 x. And then 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. Again, use that Desmos calculator to do that division or the reducing here. Okay, so if you need to reduce or divide, then make sure you do that as well. Okay, letter D. Now these ones are a little simpler because if you look, it's almost in y equals mx plus b form, but it has a negative 3 with it. So when I go to solve this one, I don't have to move the x term over like I did up here because the x term is already where it needs to be. So instead this time, I'm just going to divide by negative 3. So that way I can cancel out my negative 3's and now my y is alone. 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5x. 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So what is our slope in this case? Our slope is negative 5. Right there, multiplied to our x. Okay, so look, it wasn't 15. It's negative 5. So we have to be able to solve for y. Okay, when we're solving for y here, similar concept. I just need to get my y alone. Everything looks good except this 2 that I need to divide away from each term. So this is going to cancel. I'm left with y equals. Now here, remember, there's a 1 in front. So it's negative 1 divided by 2, which is negative 1/2 x. And then 4 divided by 2 is 2. Again, you put these fractions in your calculator if need be. I've said that quite a few times now. So now I need my slope, and my slope in this equation is right here multiplied to my x now because my y is alone. Y equals mx plus b. I can see my slope is negative 1/2. All right, and then this last one right here. So I'm going to bring my line down again, and I need to get my y alone, so divide by 2. Now notice in this one you're missing the x term. That's okay. What does that mean? That just means you have y equals a number. That's your Hoy problem, remember? H-O-Y. So that's going to be a horizontal line. So what's our slope going to be? If that's a horizontal line, y equals a number, horizontal line, this 0 is your slope. Okay, so it's going to go right across, horizontally across the graph if we were to graph that equation. Okay, so our slope is 0. All right, so I want you to take a pause, give A, B, C, and D a try. And when you are ready, unpause it and we can go ahead and go over them. All right, so you should have these done. Let's see how you did. The first one, I'm going to subtract the 12x. This is like A, B, and C. Get rid of that negative 12x, and we're going to drop down the 4y. And then remember, we need mx first, so the negative 12x first, and the positive 8 is going to go second. My next step to get my y alone is to divide everything by 4. So y equals negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3x. 8 divided by 4 is positive 2. So what is our slope here? Negative 3, right there. Okay, let's do the next one. So again, our first step is to, if I want my y term alone, undo the x term, subtract it. So we're going to subtract the 3x. We're left with negative 4y. Don't forget the negative. Mx plus b. So negative 3x plus 16. Okay. My next step is going to be to divide by negative 4 because I need my y alone. So divide it off there, and we're going to go ahead and cancel. Y equals negative 3 divided by negative 4 is positive 3/4 x. 16 divided by negative 4 is negative 4. Once again, use that calculator to do that division if need be. Okay, so what's our slope here? Mx, 3/4. So the number multiplied to your x. Okay, letter C. Let's go with this one. Line's going to drop. We're going to get the y by itself. Oh, look, there's no x term. Oh, right off the bat, I'm thinking this is a Hoy problem. So what's my slope going to be? Slope's going to be 0 without even solving it. Just because we learned Hoy and Vux. This one's a Hoy because there's only a y. Just to finish it out, I'll show you. Divide by negative 6, and we get y equals, I get negative 10/3. That's not pretty, but that's okay. There's still no slope because there's no x in the equation. Okay, so there's 0 x's. That's why your slope is 0. Okay, last one. Let's see how we did here. This one, we're going to move the x. So we can put a 1 in front of it if you want, minus the 1x, minus the 1x, and we're left with 2y equals negative 1x plus 4. And again, I need the y alone, so you're going to divide by 2, and you're left with y equals negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 1/2 x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So what is our slope? Our slope is right multiplied to the x. It's y equals mx plus b. It's negative 1/2. Okay, so check those. Hopefully you fix them. If you miss them, we want all correct work on our notes. So that is all I have for you guys for this set of notes. Let me know in office hours if you have any questions or there's anything you need help on with this section. All right, have a good one.